Hey guys, I'm here with Cherryo, the jungler for SSG. We're here to talk about Phase 2, Phase 1, maybe look towards Worlds a little bit, and also talk about Cherryo's long and illustrious SPL and Smite career. So let's start with Phase 2, and I think we basically have to start with this sort of last set that you guys have played. I know when we talked about it with the analysts, we considered it basically like an exhibition set because you guys had role swapped everything. Can you talk a little bit about the role swap and where it came from? I know in some of the Smite Pro YouTube content, you guys had talked about this sort of being your ideal fit for role swapping.
Yeah, we kind of just wanted to try and have a little bit of fun in the last set, really, more than anything. Like we had like two ideas. Either we just troll pick in our roles, you pick unconventional picks, or we just role swap. And we kind of felt like role swapping could be a little bit more fun, so we just thought we should do it. And the roles just kind of fit themselves, like with the way we play.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really expect Raffer to do anything other than play mid. And you
Yeah,
gave him the
that's the
Discordia
role.
just to get that passive up, right?
Yeah, it is one of his main gods as well. So Discord and Thoth.
Sure. I do have to ask about the Alpwash. I think this is the only time we've seen Alpwash in the solo lane. Was this just to get the blessing of the gambler, Hindu man, who said, if all the gods are played, you guys are gonna, get the script in your favor?
Pretty much so. The Hindu man tweet and we're like, maybe it's true. Maybe let's just get him out of the way. Maybe we'll get a little something back in return in the script this year or next year.
Sure.
And also it was like, I mean, who cares, right? We know he's not the best god, but like, if we could pick him and make sure like people who want to see a push played, then we'll do it.
Yeah. Do you sort of expect to get camped that game? Especially with them sort of knowing.
I did not expect to get. I expected to get camped, but not that early. Like, I got ganked before Scream even had full boots. He had boots too, and then he was ganking. And usually it's a bit early.
Yeah.
So like I haven't even placed my wards yet. Like I bought 2 wards, I think, but I haven't placed them yet, and ended up dying before I placed them. So
it's unfortunate. Yeah, unlucky on the Alpash. What is can you talk a little bit more about this set? Did you guys was there anything interesting going on in the comms and things like that? Was there some fun things happening? Can you give us maybe an inside look?
A lot of trolling, a lot of like fake toxicity, everyone BMing each other and being bad at the roles, like getting solo diff to jungle diff to ADC diff, kind of just like trolling around mainly. But I was mainly, obviously we're still like, oh, we can win this fight if we fight this go in this guy. Like we're still trying, obviously, but it was a lot of trolling like in between.
Sure. Well, even though you guys were trolling a little bit and there was a bunch of role swaps, you guys do end up with the win. Speaking of which, you guys have basically had a lot of wins. I think really the only team in Phase 2 and maybe even Phase 1 that you guys struggled with has been Ghost. Can you talk about what Ghost does and maybe why they are hard for you guys to play into? Because I think I remember Raffer talked in an interview and he just said Ghost is just a team that we find very difficult. Can you expound on that a little bit?
It's just the way they play, like kind of counters the way we play a little bit. Like without going into too much detail, they are very like proactive early game, and we are a team that is like more proactive mid game. So like if you give us like the first 2-3 items, and we have like way better chance at winning the game, and it goes just just ramps up a little bit earlier. And when we're just not playing at 100%, we're not like ready for we're not reacting to what they're doing well enough. We'll just lose, obviously.
Yeah.
But so like there's 2 ways to play against that, right? You either be the one that's proactive, or you just like be more aware and be smarter in the way you play the map. And we don't know which one we'll do. We'll see, I guess, next time we play them.
Sure. Do you feel, a lot of times on the casters and analysts, we talk about like Ghost being a quote unquote like early game team. Do you feel that is very much the case? I mean, like, I think from the picks that we see, they're not necessarily early game picks. Is it just sort of their play style that is, pressure out from minute 0?
Yeah, Ghosts are definitely not an early game. Like they don't. I mean, sometimes they do. Like they had a while where they would just pick full pressure. They have like Herc, Uller, and Arthur in solo, for example.
Yeah.
So then, that's full pressure, obviously. But like they haven't really been playing full pressure all the time. Like a lot of games. Like against us one time, they had Gebbin's support. They had Fafnir before. They're both not very good. Like early game, they're fine.
Right.
They had Susano as well. He's not an early game jungler. So they just kind of pick. They pick normal. They just pick comps or whatever. They pick normal gods. But then the way they play is more like early game pressure. Like you don't have to pick early game pressure to play early game pressure. It makes it easier, obviously.
Yeah.
But they just like play around where they're strong early game, and if we like know stuff is coming, like Like sometimes you just know that they're gonna invade this blue or they're gonna gank this lane, but like we just don't react well enough to it and we end up
Sure.
falling behind for it.
Yeah, I understand. I did want to bring up one more thing, is because it seems like your team really sort of starts snowballing. I would say like around 20 or 22 minutes, like as we get towards the lid or mid
Mhm.
and late games. Sorry, and this is something that sort of reminded me a lot of the old Energy Squad or the old Epsilon Squad, where they would sort of just be very passive, and then once 18 minutes or 20 minutes hits, the team fights just start always going their way, and it's a pretty quick game after that. Is that something that you guys feel like? Is that accurate representation of your style now?
Yeah, it's not something we plan. Like, oh, let's just fight around this time. But it's like I don't know. Like for me, anyways. Like when I'm feel like I am ready to like do what I want in team fights, I'll just say, okay, let's just go fight at gold or pyro or fire, and because I know that I'm like stronger than their enemy jungler, or like I know their carries will just die to me, or I can set up their tanks or something. Then usually, like when we have a plan going into a team fight, we just win. So like the only times we lose, I feel, is when teams start the fight before us and we don't have a plan set up ready, like what we
Mm,
want to do in a fight. Like I haven't thought it through. Like, oh, we go on this guy, we kill this guy, and just do this and that, and it becomes harder to play the fights when you don't have an actual plan.
yeah,
So, but when we get to set up the plan, go to gold when we want, or go to pyro when we want, or fire when we want, then usually we know what to do in the fight. So it's like a clean fight for us. When they randomly like pull gold, for example, and we have to react, sometimes this is where we're like people like on different pages, and sometimes we struggle.
sure, sure. Are these sort of like choreographed engagements? Are these maybe planned out before the game, or is this all just sort of in-game adaptation that you guys are doing?
It is mostly in game. Like maybe sometimes we'll talk about it. Like okay, you should get this relic to counter this and do that, and like oh build this item so we can deal with this. But like in like mostly it's like 10 to 15 seconds before we start a fight, we know what the plan is. Like the plan is go on this guy, or like make sure to keep Dord alive. We can make sure to keep Vord alive. He's like going to carry this fight. Nick has owned this guy. Kill this guy. Like it just depends on the team fight. But yeah, most of the time I'd say like 15 seconds before we start a fight, we've already planned out what is each person's job in the fight to make it more simple for everyone.
Right, right. Yeah, I sort of maybe imagined that, like, maybe this is me thinking too much into it, and that Smite is probably way more complex than this, but just like, because we see Obey now sort of focus on objectives and things like that, I kind of
Mm-hmm.
wondered if maybe there was the thought process of teams even before playing. They're like, oh, we want to get 15-minute golds, or we want to get the 12-minute gold, or does that come in at all in like your
Yeah, this
pre-planning
is
before the sets?
yeah. These are definitely nice strats. Some teams do with them before. Like some people just go into a game where like we are only doing objectives and disengaging. Like we're gonna get an objective and get out. We're gonna frenzy, secure, get out. We're gonna only camp solo for the first 10 minutes. Like pressure that side completely. We can invade purples. Like we'll focus. Like sometimes you go into the game with like a certain plan in mind.
Hmm.
But obviously, sometimes stuff happens in the game that
Right.
this plan changes. So like you're always going to be able to adapt. Obviously,
Hmm.
we don't do this as much. We don't go into a game with like one certain plan. We kind of just like adapt as it goes. Which is why maybe we're not as proactive early game because like everyone's just doing their own thing and reacting on their own. But yeah, like if we go into a game with like okay, we're invading every purple, then we will obviously be more proactive because we have a certain plan in mind.
How often would you say that these game plans sort of like radically shift in the middle of a game? Like, you're trying something for like the first maybe 10, 12, 15 minutes, and at that point you realize, hey, we got to switch it up to something completely different. Does that ever happen for you guys?
I mean, yeah, for sure. Like, I remember we had a game against like PK last phase or something,
Hmm.
where the plan was to like completely shut down. Paul was playing Hell and was completely shut down Hell, and then level two, me and Dordis both died.
Mm.
So obviously that plan is like, well, that is not going to work. You're not gonna fight in mid when you're already both behind. Like, it's
Hmm.
not the best place to fight. So you have to like switch up the plan.
Right,
Maybe like
right.
focus on farming. Maybe focus on ganking side lanes instead. Try to get a sneaky objective or something. Like obviously things change, but like you got to be able to adapt. Like it happens a lot where you just, like if something goes wrong in the game, like you're supposed to invade a blue, two of you die or something. Then okay, you're not invading blue anymore. You don't want to lose the game of that. So yeah, it happens sometimes.
Would you say those sorts of like adaptations and changes happen in every game?
If you're playing against a good team, it should. Like you should never execute a plan 100%, and the other
Mm.
team's just letting you get away with it for free. Like that shouldn't happen. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. One thing our analyst Frost likes to bring up a lot and has brought up in this phase in the past is that your team especially plays what he likes to call our meta adjacent picks, which is not necessarily the meta picks, but sort of like picks that both work well in your comp and for the players on your team for their style, but also are just sort of like just next to the meta and still do some things. I think like Hera is like the big example of this, where no one was really playing Hera before Dardes, and Dardes played it so much and so well that Hera has sort of become meta in the SPL. Is that something that you sort of think about and have noticed at all with your team,
Yeah,
especially?
yeah, for sure. Like, I say the most two ones are like Hera and Erling. Like, they both weren't really picked at all.
Yeah.
Well, not at all, but they like Erling was like people just weren't playing him at all last phase in phase one. And I started
Mm-hmm.
playing, and then like slowly see like other players start playing him, and I was like, oh, this guy's actually like not that bad. Same with Hera. I think Hera is like more obvious because like no one picked that god at all, and then the others just kept playing it. So it's not like I guess it becomes meta because like teams know we play, so it's like our meta. I guess like
Right. Right.
Hera, Erling, and Afro as well. No one really plays Afro except
Mm-hmm.
us, kind of
Mm-hmm.
same thing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say we're doing it on purpose. Like we kind of just like we just think these gods are good. Other teams don't think the same as much. Like they don't think Hera is a top pick. Well, we kind of do for the way we want to play. So like
Mm.
it's not like oh well okay we need another non-meta god to pick so people like they're not playing it. So it's just like we think this god is good we'll play it. People keep banning it because they think we're good with it, and we'll take it.
Sure. Sure. You mentioned playing Afro, which very few other teams do. And I remember when Zeros was on as an analyst, he had some thoughts about just trying to kill Raffer over and over again or trying to ban out Raffer because he feels that Raffer plays these peeling gods really well and helps keep picks like Hera and Afro and the carries for your team alive. Is that something that you guys feel could be a point of attack towards your team? Is teams looking to ban out Raffer to stop the peel?
I think it will definitely happen eventually. It hasn't been happening at all this phase. Where like
Yeah, I
people
don't
have
think
kind of
we've
just
seen it
been
this phase at all.
yeah, people just really been ignoring Raffo and the last phase a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But yeah, like Raffo is way plays way better on the peeling gods when he gets to like stay with Roland daughters and kind of like gets to see the team fight from like a backline perspective. I'd say um, like he can still play like stuff like Kazambo, Sobek,
Right,
and
right.
Xingchen or Horus or whatever. I mean, Horus is appealing up, but yeah, like he can still play the aggro gods, but he like we as a team do better when he's like playing at the back.
Mm-hmm,
Me and
mm-hmm.
Nika playing in the front. Kind of how we play best. I think. Eventually, maybe if they feel like there's no point banning the other gods, they'll just ban Rafa gods. We'll see. We haven't really thought about it too much, but I think like Rafa has enough gods anyway, so it won't matter too much if they try to ban him out. If they
Yeah,
ended up banning like three of its gods, then me and Doris get to get our picks, then we
true,
should be
true.
able to carry.
Sure, sure. I wanted to talk a little bit about the long phase two, the triple round robin. Just how your team has dealt with it so far. Now that we're at the end of the phase, did you think the long phase sort of went swimmingly? No, no problems, no tussles amongst the squad or anything like that.
I didn't really feel that long to me, anyways. Like it kind of just went by fast, but we didn't really double scrim. We tried not to scrim too much to make sure we don't get burnt out. We kind of just like scrim 3 to 4 days a week, I would say. Then you had like two SPL days. We had always Mondays off. I mean, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So like we kind of just like did that every time. I'm not really sure. Like I don't think it affected anyone like too much. Like we just kind of didn't really feel like, especially when going to the studio, just feels like scrims honestly most of the time.
Mm.
I think we've learned a lot from the long phase. I guess like not the long phase, but just in the division generally, getting more games to play. You should learn more stuff.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So honestly, didn't mind too much. I do prefer like kind of like less long phase and more short phase. Like I'd prefer like one round robin at like 4 times than instead of like what we do. I prefer 3 different round robins than one. Instead of playing each team 3 times, rather just play each team once and then having like another one. Kind of feels like more. Like you want to play for more stuff. Like it's more chances to be first place, more chances to be second place. More chances to
Mm-hmm.
actually win.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
kind of prefer that, but I don't really mind it too much. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Who would you consider were maybe the most improved teams or players throughout the phase?
Most improved teams, probably PK, I'd say.
Yeah.
Like they weren't bad. Like let's say they went from like a 4 to an 8. You know, like they had like the most going up the most.
Mm.
I think all the teams like slightly. Obviously, every team improved. I think
Yeah.
like overall,
Mm.
but like compared to other teams, you know. I think like a lot of teams are inconsistent right now. I think the Radiant's pick kind of like hurt them a lot. Sanguine kind of like had like a on and offs, but like mostly on obviously. Renegades a bit like are improving a little bit, but you know like relatively improving. I guess like it's not that much. Like they need to improve more if they want to like catch up to the top teams. I'd say. United had a big roster as well, so like they still have a lot to like learn and stuff. So I'm not sure how to like judge them kind of.
Sure, sure. You know, on the same track of improvement, where do you think your squad, SSG, has improved the most over this phase?
I say we improved at the stuff that we're really good at.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think we improved at our strengths, like in like how we when we get our comps, we just know how to win with them. Like it's not like we don't need to talk about anything. We just know like okay, we do the like we know how to win the game.
Yeah.
It seems like feels pretty simple for us. But our weaknesses, like we haven't really fixed our main weakness, which is like I'd say the first 10 minutes of the game, maybe even 6 really. I feel like this is like where we struggle the most. If a team wants to punish us, that's where they would like try to hurt us, you know.
Sure.
And I feel like if we fix that weakness, like we'd be like honestly twice as good of a team. Like we just fix a lot of our issues. Then we only have to worry about improving mid and late game, which we still obviously need to work on because we don't really get to practice that much in scrims, in getting into team fights and fire giant and stuff like that, and flip pushing.
Yeah.
Which we will hopefully like we'll start working on as soon as we try to fix like the early game problems.
Sure, sure. Last couple questions here, maybe more focused on the lead up to Worlds and things like that. You know, I've heard from some of the players that there's going to be a pretty long break between the end of Worlds qualifiers and the start of the Worlds tournament, almost a month-long break there. And I imagine as one of the top seeds, you probably will not even have to play qualifiers, but I'm not 100% sure on that. How do you guys plan to stay focused when there's so much off time between these like major tournaments?
I think it mainly depends on like whether we auto qualify to Worlds to the semis or we end up having to play the qualifiers as well. Like if you had to play the qualifiers and you kind of don't have that much time to, have much time off, you just kind of take maybe a week off max and just get back into it, try to scrim again, try to decide like why did you not make it? Why were you not top 2? Because like if you won that tournament, you basically won Worlds if it was in November, right? Like if Worlds was today, you were the best team. So you're feeling pretty good about that. You just need to keep that up, keep improving, make sure other teams don't catch up to you. Recognize why you won and how other teams will counter. But if you ended up not losing, like just not getting top 2, you have to realize why you didn't get top 2. Like what are the biggest weaknesses? What were your strengths? Try to like push on that, obviously. So I think it just depends on each team and why they lost. Like if you got stomped, that's probably like the worst case scenario. Like you don't really want to get stomped. You don't want to feel like, oh, we can't even win. Like we didn't even have a chance. Like if you ended up losing a close series, like oh, we could have done that and that, we'd have won. That's probably like best case scenario. If you lost, if you end up winning, then if you get top 2, you're feeling pretty good about it. If you get first or second, you're like, oh, we could have, we almost did it. If you, like we just won Worlds or whatever. If you got second, you're like really close to it. Like you won't feel too bad about it. You'll still be like, okay, take some time off and then go again, try to improve again.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just going to ask you sort of flat out, maybe not, because I think you guys expect to win Worlds this year, but are there any other things that you think we might see in sort of the Worlds meta or, in the game that comes through from these SPL players? Like, what are your expectations for the Worlds tournament in January?
I'm expecting one of like the lower end teams to kind of pop off. Like I wouldn't really call United the lower end team, like because the players they have really like they could be a top team if they wanted to, but they're just not. Sure. Say United Renegades and Obey, like I could see one of them like popping off. Having a good run, having a good meta for like worlds qualifiers. Popping off like PK like SK did last year.
Sure.
So maybe that will happen. Who knows? I also am expecting like some cheesy starts, like 1 or 2 teams will have like a start that isn't the norm. Like jungler isn't starting on speed or support isn't starting on purple. They're doing something random somewhere else on the map. Because try to throw teams off. I'm expecting like random, like warriors blessing in mid, maybe stuff like that. Like I don't know. We'll see. Like try to not cheesy starts, right. But like off meta starts. I'm expecting that maybe 1 or 2 off meta picks as well from a couple of teams.
Sure. let's maybe move on to phase one and the beginning of this season. I think the main thing we have to talk about here is Vote. I know you and Vote were probably friends even before this season, but it's got to be different being friends and being teammates, and colleagues and things like that. What were sort of your initial thoughts and expectations for Vote? And then how did those expectations play out? And how do you feel now? How's Vote doing now?
I mean, Vogt had kind of like a shaky start, I guess, what people want to call it, but he's improved like so much throughout the year. I think he's like had a lot more synergy with Dort as well built as the more games you play. Him and Ref are still like obviously a really good duo. They have like one thing they're like weak on, and if they fix that, they probably like win every duel in if they wanted to. So like I'm never really worried about Vote in team fights. Like I just know like a lot of games where I'm like, okay, just keep Vote alive and we win the game, and like all they do in the fight is just make sure Vote doesn't die. Like I completely like ignore going on their carries and just know like if Vote's alive, he'll kill everyone. So like I have like trust in Vote that like if we give him a lead or if we want him to carry, he'll carry.
Sure. What about maybe some of the expectations for the rookies in this league? I mean, we had basically a whole rookie team in Sanguine, and then two rookie supports in Jake and Bobby. I mean, kind of hard to count Guy J because he only played in the league for 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So maybe let's stick to those three. What were your expectations for Sanguine coming in?
I thought Sanguine would be a really good team. I was pretty certain that they'd be like a top 4 team. I never really thought like they'd be a bad team just because they have so much energy together and they really care and try really hard to win and stuff. So I never thought they'd be a bad team. Like I still think they have a pretty good chance to win Worlds. Like they have a pretty good shot if it's just the right week for them.
Yeah.
Like they're a team that like if they pop off, they will just win. Like I don't really doubt it at all. If they get to their team fights and they do what they want, like team like really drives off momentum. And if they have a good momentum, like if they go to the qualifiers and have a good run there, like I could easily see them like stomping Worlds. Not really stomping, but like having like have a really good run.
Sure.
And Jake, I mean, I don't really know much about Jake because obviously I'm not like didn't play that much any ranked. I just knew he was a big troll and I knew he was a really good player, like mechanically. So like I thought he would just do well because he was on a team of people like who can kind of teach him, maybe guide him a little bit with like Barra and Ben having a lot of experience and Rose like an experienced coach as well. I honestly didn't know anything about Bobby. Like I rarely saw him play, so I don't really have much opinion on him. But he's definitely improved a lot throughout the year. Like he was playing like gods that I don't think were good like at the start. That were kind of just making it really hard for his team and him to like actually do anything. But then like since Sign joined and then they started playing like building a bit more synergy, having specific strats and metas and comps like they played, like he's definitely improved a lot as well.
Sure. This last week I think was maybe the first time since phase one that we saw Bobby and Jake on Yamoja. Do you think that these rookies sort of have gotten a Yamoja in the God pool? Because I think it's been fairly known from looking at the picks and bans for most of phase two, neither of these guys was willing to play Yamoja in Pro League games. You think that could still be a detriment for them, maybe going into Worlds and things like that?
I think like Bobby played it against his phase one. I remember but I don't know. He kind of just stopped playing it, or like they kept banning it instead as well. Instead of trying to pick it. So I don't really. But I think Bobby can play Emoja. But I think Jake just kind of like doesn't like the playstyle of her, or like doesn't like playing her. Like I'm sure he can play her if he wants. So like it's not that hard of a god. Like she has a really high skill ceiling, but I'd say the skill floor is pretty low.
Sure.
You can kind of just like mindlessly play Emoja. And I don't really know if he has any Liverpool. I kind of just figured that it's the last week. It's like, oh, let's just play Emoja. Why not? Take it as practice. So I don't really know if that means much. Like we'd have to see in the playoffs with Jake and in the qualifiers if they actually play. But I'm almost sure that teams like they have a lot of time off. They will just grind Emoja every day in scrims because like they have 2 weeks to like make sure they're good with the god and bring it out at Worlds and the playoffs.
Yeah. I thought I had a follow-up question here, but it just fluttered out of my mind. Let's give it 30 seconds, and if it doesn't come back, we'll move on. Okay?
We're talking about rookies, and then we're talking about Yamoja.
Bobby and Yamoja. Yeah. Oh, here's the question. Do you think that them playing Yamoja in the final week was maybe like a signal to the league, like, hey, we're playing it. You have to ban it now.
Yeah, I think it might be, but like I'm pretty certain that teams, if they do play against them,
Mm-hmm.
because you play best of fives, right? Like game one, your second pick, you're leaving emoji open. You're gonna see how good they are on that character. You're gonna see if they can play it.
Mm-hmm.
Give
Mm-hmm.
them a test. You're not gonna like, oh, just ban emoji because he played it one game. Like
Sure,
I don't think
sure.
anyone would actually fall for that. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
people keep it in the back of their mind. Like, oh, maybe we need to pick emoji because they don't pick it. But I don't think anyone will be banning it. To be honest.
Yeah, I think I just totally forgot. I think all the games from now on are going to be basically best of fives, right?
Yes, pretty much. I think.
Maybe qualifiers now. Maybe qualifiers are
Yeah,
best of
I don't know.
threes,
Qualifiers could be best of threes.
but
Hopefully, it's best of fives
I know
because these games
playoffs
are
is
really
best of
important.
fives for sure.
Yeah, playoffs are all best of five.
And Worlds is all going to be best of five, so they're going to be some, a lot of long sets. And I think, especially in best of fives, we see a lot of, meta, like a set meta occurring.
Yeah, for sure. Like the first game, everyone goes in their draft, and you're never ever gonna see that it's game three and there's the same exact three bans on both sides. Like it's not
Yeah,
gonna happen.
yeah, it's not.
Teams start switching up. It's like, okay, we had problems dealing with Epic, even if you had like no intention on betting like on bats or something. You're like, okay, well, he just popped off on bats, and it counters like, we want to play the team fights. Let's just ban it. Stuff
Yep.
like that happens all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
So yeah, definitely would be expected. Like that's the kind of the fun thing about best of five sets and watching them is like the switch in meta and play cells as the set goes on.
Sure, sure. All right, let's move on to your Smite career on the whole and some of the past seasons that you've played in. If I recall correctly, you've been to Worlds twice before on teams, right? In season 3 and season 6. Is
I
that correct?
think so. Season four. Wait, four
Season
or three?
4. Season 4,
Yeah,
yeah.
season four and season six.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I just wanted to ask you, what are some lessons that you've learned from your Worlds experiences and, playing on the stage and things like that? What are some takeaways that you've taken from Worlds and maybe implemented into your own playstyle now, or how you communicate with your team and things like that?
I think is like kind of made me realize how much Worlds is just like it's just 3 days tournament that it doesn't really matter how good you are as a player. It doesn't matter how good you were as a team. Like last time you played that team, like because like all that doesn't matter. It just matters how you are in the moment, your mentality going into the set, and the morale and the momentum and all that stuff. Like morale plays a huge part. I feel like in a tournament like this, like if your team feels like they're gonna win, they just win. Like you're just in a game, you know you're winning, you just won. Like you're almost sure you've won that set, and you just play so much better. You're just way more confident in the plays you make. And if you're just losing and you just start giving up, you're never gonna win it. Like you're never gonna win a set when you start thinking like, uh, what's going on? Like why are we losing? Like why is Skype doing this? Why are we doing mistakes like that? Like so as long as he's like you have to try and stay mentally, and like that's kind of the most important thing I'd say in Worlds. You learn a lot as well. Like from each game, like I'd say like in the SPLs you kind of learn from sets maybe a little bit, but like in Worlds every game you learn a lot from, and you always take that into consideration when you're doing the next draft, next plan, next time you play them. Like next fire gen you go for, you're like okay, like they did this last game. Like I think the teams always like go in with a specific strategy and they don't change it. Like PK had like their comps, like they were just gonna play that every game. Like no one really goes too crazy at Worlds. I think like game four and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever seen someone like completely switch like their plan because like you don't want to risk it. Like you kind of just need to keep the same structure of the team. I'd say.
Sure. Are there things that you do to sort of build that confidence? I recall when I interviewed Shinto, we talked a little bit about, you know, part of their sort of like hype calls in the comms is sort of just to get everyone like amped up. Are there ways that you guys as a team sort of try to get amped up to like, build momentum, where, even if it's sort of facetious momentum?
Not really, which I think is like a slight disadvantage. Not a weakness, but disadvantage. Like we have no one that is like we don't have a hype man. We don't really get loud in comms. Like I got a pentakill and there was like nothing in comms. It was like nice, like good job, man.
Yeah, that
And
sucks.
like yeah, like that was it. Like we don't have like I used to be on teams like that. Like I used to be on London Conspiracy, and we'd get really loud. We'd start yelling. Like Emil's, he would just go crazy. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Fumble was like that as well. Like he would go insane in comms. But like this year, we're all very quiet players. I think maybe Nika would be like one that gets the most hype. But even then, like he doesn't like start yelling or anything. He's just like I'm fucking them here. Like I'm like these guys can't do anything or whatever stuff like that. But that's kind of it. Like I do think it would be nice sometimes to like have that, but also it kind of if you're not winning, it is bad because like if
Yeah.
you're not winning, someone starts getting hyped up and you're like, oh my god, winning the fight, and then you're like, everyone's like starts like all getting too hyped and you kind of like lose track of the team fight and you end
Sure.
up losing. It does suck sometimes, but I think it's mainly like a good thing for sure. Like because morale matters a lot,
Mm-hmm.
like at tournaments for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to also talk about sort of the thing that I think maybe you and your team in season 4 was most famous for, which was the double hunter, triple guardian comp. Can you talk a little bit about sort of where that started and why it was effective for you guys?
I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure it was Doris wanted to play Nox support because he thought the god was OP.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I know how to play Athena. Like I played her a lot, so I was like, I'll just play Athena. It's kind of easy setup, you know.
Mm-hmm.
The ult works well with Nox dash. You know, he can dash in me while I'm ulting, stuff like that. It was like it's just a pretty obvious and simple combo that would like catch people off guard. Would just like start farming supports with it because like Fafnir was really meta back then, and
Yeah.
Terra, and they were both pretty bad into like Athena Nox because like Terra can't really do anything, and Fafnir was supposed to be really hard to kill. Can't really use his immunity frames when he's silenced or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
it was like that was like the main reason we started playing it, and then it was like we're doing really well with this playstyle where like I'm engaging, I'm leading the team fights, I'm like frontlining pretty much,
Mm-hmm.
and we're like, well, uh, can do it with assassins, can do it with like assassin tank meta back then in jungle, like with Surket and Ansal was really good, then Glads was really good. Like these items were really good back then. And I was like, I'll just play Guardians. Like Guardians is just better tanks than assassins. Obviously, they have more base damage. They just have better base stats on everything. So we just added added God slowly to. We had like Cabra was like the second one who we felt was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Items like Celestial Legion helmets were really good back then. Void Stone was really good back then. Stone of Gaia was like probably the best item in the game back then.
It's
We were
making a
like
comeback right now too. I feel
it
like.
is, yeah. We were like spamming that item.
Sure.
Me, Daughters, and No Numbers. We're all building it, and it was really OP. So that's kind of why it worked.
Yeah.
And then we slightly started adding more gods. We like oh, let's just play R2 in jungle. Let's play Ymir as well. And
Mm-hmm.
then like Panther was also like insane on Yi. Like he literally just triple bounce everyone. Like he would never miss a one. So we just felt like if we get Yi or if we get like Athena Nox, like it's just the game. Like if we get Athena or Yi, like we'd always win.
Okay.
But once people obviously started banning it, it was a bit harder. So like yeah, we just
Sure.
felt like the comps we're just really good with the way we play, like the meta back then.
Great. Great. I think we're sort of coming up on the end here. I just wanted to ask quickly, throughout your whole SPL career, have you had any mentors? And then on sort of the flip side of that, what about any rivals that you've had over your SPL career?
I don't think I've necessarily had either, but like I would say if I had to choose one mentor, it would be Twig when he used to jungle. Like at the start when I started playing like season 2 and 3, I was like looking up to him a little bit. I was like kind of like figuring out the way he plays. So, like I thought the way he played jungle was like very different and interesting than other players. You know, like different players like adapting or like Anister or Scream at the time. You know, I was like I want to like learn from him a little bit, and
Sure.
then I'd say rivals. I don't really have any rivals, but like I would say Sam for now because you know he beat me at Worlds in the semis, and then they kind of like won against us at playoffs this year as well.
Yep.
And in the second phase. So I guess like if team I want to beat the most right now is Ghost, and for mentors I would say Twig. So I guess my mentor and rival are both on Ghost for this year. So we'll
Hey,
see how it goes. Yeah,
I think that'll be a pretty good feeling then if you beat Ghost, right?
yeah.
All right. So now we're here at this part of the interview where I ask who you beefing with, who you trying to call out, who's inting the scrims, you know, and finally, of course, feel free to shout out anyone you want to shout out, and you know, say anything that you need to say. The soapbox is yours, Mr. Cherryo.
Well, everyone's inting scrims. That's for sure. Us and the enemy team. Like if I had to call out like specific people, I'd say Raffer, Doris, vote. Nika doesn't end scrims, but he tilts in scrims, which is kind of the same thing.
Yeah, it
He
is.
like shuts down, gets really emo. A little bit of that. He gets ganked, loses blue. It's not gonna be a good time for anyone.
Yeah.
Referee notice you just don't know what's going in their head. I don't think anything like it's just empty up there. They just like auto play, auto run, like they don't know what they're doing. It's just a struggle sometimes, but hopefully the closer we get to playoffs and worlds, the brain starts filling up, and they start like, oh, I remember how to think.
Yeah.
That's what I'm waiting for. That is what I'm waiting for.
Sure.
I don't really other teams like every team just has their troll players. We just have too many troll players. That's the difference. Like they have one, maybe two. We have two, maybe three sometimes.
Maybe
So we
4,
just
maybe 5 sometimes.
yeah. Like if my whole team is trolling, I'm like my mental is shattered. I'm just like running it down as well. Yeah, I think everyone kind of trolls in scrims a little bit, which is fine. But when it starts when it's becomes too often, then it kind of starts affecting scrims a little bit.
Sure.
And I guess shout outs to SSG. They're definitely the best org I've been a part of.
Mm-hmm.
In my I don't know how long I've played, 5-6 years, something like that. Definitely the best org I've been part of. They take care of us. They always if we ever want anything or need anything, they'll make sure it's there and they'll make sure we're playing our best. Shout out to my parents for letting me be here, and hopefully they let me come here next year again. I don't really know. I'm trying not to think about it and not stress about it too much.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a thing where I'll talk to them when I'm back, instead of having to worry about it now and affects my performance or anything.
Yep.
Shout out to my team, obviously. They're all idiots, but I really enjoy playing with them.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully they stop trolling so we can maybe get a Worlds win,
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me, Cherryo. I wish the best for you and your team in playoffs and qualifiers and Worlds. And even next season, I hope to see you in the SPL again because I love watching you play. So thanks a lot for joining me, and best of luck to you guys.